People, we are here. We're doing some Garden Report action. We were waiting for the whole roster to arrive. Some late arriving, myself included, to the party. Sherrod Blakely is here after teaching all day at Boston University, molding young minds because that's what Sherrod does.
Summer school, huh?
Summer school. Sherrod went to homeschool, went to summer school.
Went to summer school. Jimmy Toscano.
Summer school. Somebody say summer school?
You guys going to summer school?
First day of summer. If you're still in school right now, guess what? You're a loser. No one's going to school anymore, dude.
Hey, maybe someone's trying to pick up some credits, you know? Come on, guys.
Nah,
Exactly.
Public school last day tomorrow.
You wanna get your college credits ahead of time and get out of college as soon as you can. Bad idea. Stretch that out. Enjoy your time in college.
Wow, this just got dark. Jeez.
Wicked
That's a free tip.
Damn.
That's a free tip. It might cost you a couple bucks, but free tip.
Those old school buildings with no AC, when you were in there in June, that was the worst thing ever. Just getting through like those 80, 90-degree days. That's like my worst memory.
Attention. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
I'm surprised Bobby's talking about this and not Al Horford, man. I'm surprised.
How about the last day?
Hey, let me
though. Last day of school. Anything better?
Oh, of course.
Show up, no backpack, half day.
Usually a half day. Yep.
Screwing around.
No backpack.
Take me back to that feeling.
Oh, the last day of school, of course.
Showing up, no backpack, like, yo, what's up? Yeah. We're just here to go.
There were some people who showed up with no backpack all the time.
That's true.
The Jimmy Toscanos of the world.
What are those
Jimmy's
people up to?
He did that
Probably
on the
doing Celtics podcast.
Can I borrow a pencil?
Yo, can I see your homework? I just see your homework real quick.
Yo, Bobby was definitely the dude who had like 7 pens on him every day.
Oh, dude. You kidding me? Bobby's backpack.
So
Bobby's got back problems. Let's put it that way.
He did, didn't you? He's not even denying it. He's like, yeah, I was always.
He walked around with that hunchback backpack completely full, like just going class to class.
Bobby was that dude was just like, Bobby was that dude was like, David, you didn't get my pen back, bro, like a week ago, remember? Like,
no, because Bobby went
What color would you like?
Yeah. Bobby was Bobby at the right point in time, okay?
Exactly.
Because that kind of stuff that worked, when Bobby was coming through, Yeah, he always cracks me up. You ever see 21 Jump Street?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
How like stuff that didn't play, now it plays, like Bobby was perfect for this time, Perfect. I was one strapping my backpack,
Oh yeah, dude.
You're Channing Tatum, huh? Yeah.
I would no strap it if I could. So catching people up on some of the nonsense from today, we did our breaking news Kemba Horford situation when that broke. Was it Friday morning, right?
Friday morning.
So yeah.
Friday morning.
9 o'clock. Yeah.
I was in a meeting. All of a sudden, you guys start blowing up my phone.
Yeah.
Crazy morning.
Since then, some fun stuff has happened. The Sixers and the Nets both lost. Oh, boo-hoo.
That was
process.
tough.
Yeah,
those were some brilliant games, though.
Come on, John, admit it. You were doing the pump fist like right at that Durant shot. You were looking like that. You were jumping up and down when you saw that thing.
The process.
Not go in.
Yeah, the process is over. Apparently.
What a development!
The process of elimination. I say that every year when they get eliminated.
But it's incredible, right? So there's that. The Celtics head coaching search is narrowing. We have that for sure. But an interesting thing that happened over the weekend, Sherrod, I haven't gotten your take on this, and I know as a reporter you don't like to bash another reporter's work, but there was a report that came out that detailed some dysfunction in the Celtics locker room. And issues that Brad might have had with Kemba, favoritism from Marcus Smart. We're going to go over bits and pieces of that. And I'm not going to say, agree with it or crap on it. I just want to know what we think is plausible here. Okay. So there was some dysfunction.
Allegedly.
From what you were hearing as a reporter, what, if anything, do you know just in terms of how things were operating? Because we did say it's going to really be hard to figure out what to make of this season until we do a full autopsy. Who hated who resented who? What did Brad do? Who wasn't getting along behind the scenes, whatever. I don't know that we have a full picture of it, but you're starting to get those little leaks and whispers starting to come out a little bit, drips and drabs. It started with this report. Mannix was on at NBC earlier today, and he said, "Oh yeah, people behind the scenes told me that the Celtics didn't take COVID seriously at all." And we're like, "What? Like, where's that reporting during the year?" So, like, you get the feeling like it's just going to start to trickle. So again, I don't know what you were hearing, but I'm going to go over some of the pieces of this report, but anything to that you knew that you, when talking to people, think is okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Well, the biggest thing that when I've talked to people about this team this year that they point out is that leadership was absent on so many levels with this group. Whether it was either not acknowledging who should be leading, whether it was vacant leadership, or whether it was just not the level of respect for those who were in positions of leadership you would expect. For the one example that was given to me, and we've kind of talked about this throughout the season, is how Marcus Smart is a leader of that team, but they didn't necessarily give him the kind of consistent respect that he frankly has earned. When you think about the way they played and you think about the way he plays, it was a clear disconnect between them buying into what he does well and what he knows works for him and has worked for this team throughout the course of his time there. And Brad Stevens never really figured out how to get all the pieces on the same page, whether it was because of COVID, whether it was because guys were tuning other guys out, or whether it was he just didn't have a pulse on what had to happen in order to get things working. And so for him, I mean, he talked, today about his new position and just the amount of work that's involved with it. But I gotta believe there's a part of him that's just like, whew, I don't have to deal with that that I dealt with last season. So you're gonna hear a lot of stories about dysfunction, and that's inevitably what happens when teams don't meet expectations. You're gonna hear a lot of stuff in Philly. You're gonna hear a lot of stuff, when Utah, for example, when things have obviously gone a way that they didn't expect, you're going to hear that throughout the course of the summer because that's typically what happens. People feel a lot more comfortable, putting the business on Front Street when there is no legitimate collateral damage because the season is over.
Well, and Jimmy, you had mentioned something. I want to tee you up for this because this is what's interesting. No. Just a lot of the stuff we heard, again, whether it's all dead on, whether it's coming from a place, you never know. Again, this isn't to discredit any reporting, but if you're hearing some stuff, the people, they could be emotional, they could have an agenda. It's perception of how they view a situation. And if you hear other sides, you might get different kind of interpretations of what's going on. But so much of this, Jimmy, jived with a bunch of stuff we were saying behind the scenes, like, what I think, and a lot of it kind of hit. And among those things are, Kemba's kind of salty over the trade stuff was one. Brad he didn't like being booed. Brad was being too harsh on him, whatever. But the other stuff was Brad favoring Marcus. And we talked about keeping Marcus in check and why that was an issue all the time. The team tuning out both Brad and Marcus is also something that we were saying, and Sherrod, you just alluded to. And guys just weren't jiving with Brad's style. There was a portion of this article that said that they didn't like his college-style offense. So there's a ton of stuff that you could see with your eyes that was in this report here. So it's not wholly surprising that some of this stuff is coming out.
Not at all. I mean, we watched this team. I mean, nobody watched this team, unfortunately, more than we did this year. I mean, I'm not saying other reporters didn't, but everyone watching knows that we came on the show after pretty much every game, or at least some semblance of us, and we told you exactly what we thought was going on and what we saw out there, and it all kind of backs up. It felt like the communication on the court was non-existent. It felt like one-player mode. It felt like hero ball. It felt like Brad wasn't making any adjustments at all. And how much of that was just Brad being like, all right, well, you guys figure it out because, whatever I say falls on deaf ears. Also, we talked about the fact, why haven't we heard once this season Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown one time have Brad's back? One time. Even say one little thing about pro Brad, because players used to do that in past teams. Never once did we hear it. We still haven't heard boo from either one of those guys since, Brad's, quote unquote promotion and Danny Ainge leaving. We haven't heard anything about, congrats to Brad or thanks Danny. Nothing there.
Except for Marcus.
Marcus Smart did.
Only Marcus. That's
it.
And it was a quick.
And Pritchard.
I mean, it was from Marcus. It couldn't have been in less amount of words. But again, that falls back with, okay, well, Brad was, favoriting Marcus according to that report anyway.
This
So
favoriting thing again.
Favoriting Gordon Hayward as well was another
Hayward,
issue. Yeah.
Right. But you know what? It goes back to these players and these coaches are not on the same page, and that was so obvious from watching them play.
Jimmy. Who in their right mind thinks? And
what's delusional?
The fact that Smart was favored on this roster? Are you kidding me? Who was he favored over? Kemba was given every accommodation possible, and then Tatum got to play whatever isolation set he wanted to whenever he wanted, and always had the ball in his hands.
And now you're hearing. You're also hearing the stuff here with Walker, that's coming out, on the podcasts today. And Simmons goes on his podcast and says, "Oh, I'm hearing that when he came into the bubble and they gave him all this knee stuff to do, he didn't do any of it while they were gone. And he came in and he had all of these issues. And
where were these reports during the season?
But where were these things? Right, that's the whole thing. It's like I hate that.
There's something wrong with kicking a guy on his way out the door. That just always bugs me.
It's a Red Sox
when you hear this stuff.
It's the chicken and beer thing again.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I just think the lack of focus. It's just like what Jimmy was talking about.
No, Sherrod, you were saying?
No, I hate hearing that stuff when a guy is on his way out the door because it really does feel like absolute bullshit when you're kicking a guy at that point. If this was really a big deal and if this was really something that was significant, why are we hearing this as he's leaving as opposed to when he's in the middle of the storm? It doesn't have the same weight and certainly doesn't have the same level of credibility. That's not to say that stuff didn't happen, but you have to ask yourself, why are people dropping dimes now as opposed to when this was going on? Because it makes a hell of a lot more sense to talk about this when he's missing games and he's missing reps. If in fact he wasn't taking his rehab serious versus now that he's on his way out and he's been traded, let's talk about what he wasn't doing when he was here getting rehab. There's something wrong about that. Something does not feel right.
Something about that feels off, right?
Yeah.
I think part of it is the fact that this was obviously a different year, and media was definitely shielded from a lot of what we typically would
you don't
be
get
able
to see it.
Yeah, you don't get to see, you don't get the kind of get the vibe of what's going on. Not that you get a whole lot from the locker room, but you pick up little things here and there. You talk to guys here and there, and you just didn't get any of that this year. So I kind of get it from that sense where things were shielded, and they could, teams could kind of get away with dysfunction a lot more than they probably ever could. So
you don't get to see it, like when
you don't get to see it.
The Kyrie here,
right?
Walking into that locker room, Jimmy, you'd be like, these guys hate each other.
It was a morgue in there, absolutely. Yeah. You just you have no idea what's really going on aside from what you saw on the court, and it was so glaring on the court that something was just off, and that's why I'm not surprised to hear some of these reports. Yeah, I mean, am I going to sit there and be like, oh yeah, I totally believe that Kemba didn't follow the what he was told to do? I'm not gonna say that's true. I have no idea.
Well, we did find it curious at the time that he was dealing with knee soreness that March and then came back into the bubble
with no idea.
The same spot.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's the whole thing because he was saying all the right things. And this is where I don't mean to bury Kemba on the way out, but where you're going to wonder is like, there's a lot of smiling and a lot of I feel fine, but how much behind the scenes was like, I don't feel fine.
Well, that's the biggest problem with this report is that you have a number of players, obviously, here, however many it is, spilling things that could have been said during some course of the season in the room and settled at that time. It just feels like this group just internalizes everything, every slight and every frustration with one another and what's going on here, says everything's going to be fine and doesn't act on anything. And that goes back to Brad too. Brad isn't facilitating these conversations or connections between guys, and they all just have a sense that it would have just been figured out at some point.
Josue, what's it all about? It's about what?
I was just gonna
say it. It's about
having difficult conversations.
Difficult conversations, yes.
But is Brad leaning
uncomfortable conversations?
Uncomfortable conversations.
That's right. Yeah, it is.
Brad,
and you know what? That actually goes right into my point. I was gonna say, Jimmy, I love what you said about Tatum and Brown. Them not really saying much of anything about Brad Stevens. It kind of reminds you of that again, what the culture was around the Celtics.
Yeah.
Whether it was the defense, one of the top defenses in the NBA throughout those years, those guys took pride in that because they knew night in and night out that they could beat the Golden State Warriors. They could beat the best teams in the NBA, and you just didn't get that sense of pride with this team this year throughout. I think the biggest indicator is just pretty much only outside of Marcus Smart, no one saying, hey, Brad, thanks, hey, for the last, for Tatum and Brown, hey, for my first NBA coach, I was a little surprised by that.
I don't know if the word is, maybe the wrong word is favoritism, but maybe Brad was leaning on Marcus more than the players were. Maybe Brad was like, you know what, Marcus is our vet, because every other vet has left. So, Marcus is the guy, and he's sort of the type of player that we want to sort of pattern our style of play around, at least from an effort standpoint. And maybe the other guys were like, nah, like we're better than him and we don't want to lean on him.
I thought they really missed a golden opportunity to have Marcus named the captain. I think it may not seem like that big a deal, but when you have someone who's your clear-cut leader, to me is so vital. When you have so many guys who are trying to figure out where they fit into this whole NBA landscape of being an elite player, of being a contributor. When you have a specific player who has a very specific strength that is still something that is strong in the league, which Marcus does as a defender, why would you not make him your leader? Don't you want guys to be more like him? I'm not talking about jacking all the shots. I'm talking about the effort that has defined who he is. The fact that he has not been named the captain. I mean, if you're Jason Tatum, if you're, Jaylen Brown, if you're these other guys, as much as Marcus may be setting the right example with his play, there's a part of you that's going to be thinking, but if he was really the guy we're supposed to follow, they would have made sure that we made him the guy to follow. And I feel bad for him because he's earned a right to be the captain of his team.
You know what this reminded me of exactly was, and again, to do a cross sports reference here, the last days of Terry Francona, when you had, this was a guy who everybody liked and a player's manager, and you had a Dustin Pedroia relationship where Dustin would go in there and play cribbage with Tito. And then you got Dustin was a guy who was once respected, but then you got this vibe that he was like a narc or on the coach's side. And that's and again, I don't know how much of this is true. It just made me think, like, did the relationship between Brad and Smart and the fact that Brad was leaning more on Smart because he's like, you're my guy, you got to get these guys to play, I can't get them to play, do this thing. Did it all of a sudden create a divide where now the two of them are the opposition, on one side and everybody else is over here? You went from Marcus being our heart and soul, our teammate, our leader, to kind of like, oh, now he's the narc and he's in there with Brad and he's got Brad's ear and he can do no wrong, but now he's going to tell us what to do. And again, we don't know because we don't know how much of this, I don't want to say is right or wrong, but again, a lot of this is based off of
there's two sides to
perception. Somebody's perception that this is how the relationship went. It would, however, make sense because all season long we questioned, why aren't they responding to Marcus? I thought they revered this guy, and that's what's so strange about all of it. Brad was the can do no wrong boy genius coach, and Marcus was the heart and soul leader that everybody said. Even this year, I feel like Jaylen was saying it. Marcus is the heart and soul of this team. So why didn't you follow him? Why didn't you listen to him? We're missing something. We're still missing something here.
Well, I think this is possibly just a continue. These seasons were so close where we could just be a continuation of what happened in the bubble when things really got heated there in the bubble, and Marcus was involved, and I think was Jaylen involved, and
it was Marcus and Jaylen.
Yeah, and they had the late night meeting and all this stuff in the bubble, and then all of a sudden 2 months later you're starting a whole new season. It's like maybe this is all just a continuation of it. It does feel like one long ass awful freaking basketball season dating back to how things ended. The bubble wasn't all that bad until you got to that Heat series when things just fell apart. And honestly, you can say since then it hasn't really felt the same.
Well, yeah, of course, and also you have to we talked about it throughout the entire year. No training camp, the quick turnover. Guys, obviously we've seen all these injuries popping up throughout across the league. So I think all that's relevant as well. But yeah, I mean that's a good point as well, Jimmy, because I think those relationship roles, they sort of got blurred. Maybe again we're assuming from the outside looking in.
If they didn't have closure on whatever went down, and things are just sort of just unspoken and uncomfortable, and they don't have that conversation that we've mentioned on the show a number of times, then you get the product that you get and you get the result that you get. So
and Sherrod just said it's sad that this has happened to Smart, if this is the perception of him in the room, but it's also scary. I mean, I think we all want to see this team get value for Smart at some point here and be able to improve by moving him. But if you have to move him just because the room is kind of sick of him, that's not a good thing, because honestly, you look at the season Smart had, especially the finish to the season that he had, he came through and asserted himself and was a big reason that they were even competitive in that Nets series. I thought he sacrificed when he needed to this year. As we always say, gave the game what it needed. And their better defensive stretches this year when he was out there, and they missed him badly when he was gone. He didn't have the greatest year. At times he stepped back, and of course we know he regressed defensively. But we also had a feeling that it wasn't his fault. There was quite a few breakdowns across the team when it came to them defensively, and you saw him at points this year trying to assert something that wasn't getting through just in terms of mentality. So it is frustrating that all of a sudden the perception is that he's being favorited or given undue benefit of the doubt in terms of his standing in the room, because he's been here since day one and he has had great playoff runs, and he was part of this team's turnaround from the bottom of the league. He earned the status on this team. I know Tatum and Brown have had great roles in their playoff runs here, but they're really in year one, year two of being frontmen on this team. They're the ones that have to earn the status here. And in many ways, like, isn't Tatum getting the amount of isolation looks and the role that he did while being one of the least efficient players in the league and that standing favoritism? Like, right. I just don't get this. Who on this team just keeps talking about favoritism? Hayward was benched. Rozier was given more of a benefit of the doubt on that team than Hayward was. And, like, in what way could you even conceive that Smart's being favorited here? That's just so delusional to me. He's playing the same role he always has. If anything, he's taken a step back in terms of his shot and aggressiveness here.
I think if the report was Grant Williams receives preferential treatment,
we'd be like,
that
he
would
did.
Make sense. Yeah, he did. That would add up. That
you had to bring Grant into this, Jimmy. Dude. Damn.
It wouldn't be Smart without Grant being mentioned. You know?
That would make sense, but the Smart stuff doesn't as much. Again, I don't know if it's Marcus Smart's receiving preferential treatment in the sense where it's like he can do no wrong, but maybe the players felt like he did have too much of a say off the court, or in the locker room, or on the team bus or whatever. Maybe they felt like he was trying to be that captain even though he didn't have the C on his jersey. Maybe that's what part of this was all about. Again, purely speculation.
Preferential treatment could just mean that.
No idea
again,
what it means.
It does seem to jive with. Look, I mean, I'm not where we talked about this on the thread, and this was a very pro Kemba piece. This feels like whispers coming from the Kemba camp, because the two things do jive. Too harsh on Kemba, but Marcus preferential treatment, which means Kemba blows a defensive assignment or chucks a couple bad shots or takes the offense out of its rhythm, and he heard about it. But here comes Marcus going 1 for 10 from 3, and nobody says boo to him. At least if that's your impression of what's happening, those two things seem to kind of make sense together. So again, it felt like some of this stuff could have been coming from the Kemba camp, and there's some sour grapes here about how things ended. And so you can find, I mean, how many people have left a job and pointed to 50 different things that they didn't like about it? Yeah, you're probably not. Yeah, and this guy sucked, and that guy sucked, and you know what? I was nice to him, but that guy sucked the most. That's how you do it.
I was nice to him, but he was the worst.
I was nice. I never liked that guy. I never liked him. That's what you do. And so that's kind of what it feels like a little bit, which is because again, the report had a little bit of everything, and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and this guy didn't do it, and that guy didn't do it, and Brad runs a shitty offense, It sounded like a bit of sour grapes there, and again, coming from, if not Kemba camp, people who, kind of sided with Kemba on this sort of thing.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't be surprised if it was something like that, or someone who left the team, a while ago, or is an afterthought at this point.
Lobbing bombs from the grave, right?
Yeah, because they wanted to defend Kemba and they saw things differently.
Yeah. I understand Kemba walking out the door with frustration at this level because of where he's at now. But at the same time, if you just
a lot of people saying Teague.
yeah, that's an example.
If you objectively look at the situation, there were countless times this year where Brad said we need Kemba to get where we're going to go, and they try to set him up in that position countless times throughout the year, the program most specifically that they had him on, was sacrificing wins and stability in terms of putting him in the best position to be healthy and present when they needed him most, and still didn't work in the end, and that's why he's gone. So, like, I'm not buying any of the Kemba slight discussion here. There was no slight to Kemba in any way or form from the Celtics. From my part, like, it sucks that he ended up in Oklahoma City and that his career as a star is probably over, but that had nothing to do with Boston. Like, this is not comparable to the Isaiah situation to me at all. He, by, anybody's guess here, probably got this condition through his multiple surgeries in Charlotte.
You guys don't think it looks dog shit? You guys don't think – look, if Kemba really didn't do what he was supposed to do, rehabbing the knee, came back, there was frustration there, okay, there's reason to get upset. But it really looks like they looked at that situation and immediately said, we got to get out of this as quickly as possible, which is what I was saying in the offseason, and I got killed for it. Out. Sell your Kemba stock. Get out now. And they were trying to do that. So you went from we love you, we love you, we love you, we want you in Boston to let's get rid of this guy for anything. That's going to make you feel pretty shitty, no matter who you are, no matter what. And we know it's a cold business. It's still, if you're Kemba, you have a right to be a little bit annoyed. They're like, I just got here, man, and now you're trying to get rid of me?
Yeah.
And he didn't do anything wrong.
So.
He was a starting point guard in the All-Star game. He played relatively well last year, and then he had the injuries, and they were like, nope, gone. I don't want it anymore.
Yeah, it's a
great.
little bit of everything. I mean, obviously, it wasn't like they didn't pay him. I mean, they gave him a max deal. That's obviously a big reason behind this. So you can look at it from both sides. It's like, yeah, okay, another star or former star, however you want to say it, another veteran, another guy that, you quote unquote did him wrong. But for every player that Celtics trade away, there's another player that walks away. I mean, look at Kyrie, look at Hayward, look at Horford. So what are you supposed to do? Just sit on your hands and wait for these guys to leave you for nothing? So I do understand it from a business point of view, but there's other side of it where, he feels like, oh, great, now they're shipping me off to OKC. Well, go back to the reports that we heard, a few weeks ago that Kemba wanted out to begin with. I mean, was there any truth to that? Who knows? The whole, Stevens-Walker tension-filled relationship, I never got that impression. I just never did.
Me neither. Did you ever see them barking? You ever see Kemba go to the bench, shaking his head or anything like that? I never got that vibe. But was there any subtext in any post-game commentary that led you to believe that? That's totally out of nowhere for me.
They never put him in a back-to-back. Like, they stayed true to their plan with him. And
he never said bad things about him. When he played well, people covered for him. I mean, when he played poorly, people covered for him. I didn't get it at all.
I think it's interesting that his last pregame, presser, but before that last game, he said that he actually had a long conversation with Kemba Walker, like that, as if like they had to, that it was a tough end to his season and they had a sort of a heart to heart. At least they had that vibe to it, or at least he put out that image. And then, 2 weeks later, this report comes out.
Yeah, seriously, I think they put his health front seat the whole way and try to do everything possible to put him in the healthiest position that they could. Yeah. And ultimately here, I think others lost out by them trying to keep him in a star role on this team, most specifically Jaylen Brown. When those two were present on the court together, I thought it was a massive detriment to Brown's ability to be the best that he possibly could. But they just were never comfortable, it felt like, putting Kemba in an off-ball role. Certainly not John's idea of putting him on the bench or just doing other things to try to find the next chapter of his career here. You saw bits and pieces, and I was grasping for what it was going to look like for him as a third option on this team. And ultimately, they were just preferring to have him still try to be Kemba, the way he was before. And it didn't work at all.
That's all he knows.
I thought dealing with his injury, his status, and his star role on this team, I thought was the biggest detriment to them winning last year. And that's why he's gone.
It's incredible.
They went through it. They did everything they could.
2 entire seasons derailed by trying to figure out how to work Gordon Hayward back from an injury, playing him too much, not figuring out whether to start him, how to rotate him in, tweaking other people as a result of it.
Hurt in the end.
Then he gets, and then the same exact thing with Kemba,
right in Brooklyn. Yeah.
Same thing with Kemba. It's unreal. Like, it just it messed everything up. It really is. I mean, I hate talking about luck. You wonder, what happens to the entire franchise? Gordon Hayward doesn't break his leg, in Cleveland.
Yeah.
The whole thing is so weird.
Yeah.
Now
I'm thinking
how we got here. It's incredible.
Now I can't wait to see what's the next point guard. Who is it going to be?
It's the most interesting sliding door scenario.
First time, I'm going to go on a limb and say it's not going to be one of those top scoring score first point guards that the Celtics have been blessed with the last three of them. Isaiah Thomas, Kyrie Irving, and of course Kemba Walker.
But you know what? You don't need a guy that can necessarily come in and just absolutely light it up anymore, because you've got Jalen, you've got Tatum, you've got guys who can get you points. You need someone that is not Rajon Rondo, but in the mold of a Rajon Rondo.
Who's the guy, though?
Pass first, old school guy.
Who do you have in your mind, Sherrod? Who is that guy? Because I've been racking my brain, because most point guards are score first point guards nowadays.
Or they're guys who you can't right now get. Like, for example, you're going to hear a lot of talk, obviously, about Lonzo Ball, who is a great pass first type point guard. But you're going to have major competition, not including the team that he plays for, to try to lure him. And you don't have the assets to make a really strong case to get him. So that ship, forget about that ship sailing. That shit isn't even in your damn port. It's just not going to happen. So what's the alternative? I think you've got it. The Celtics, bottom line, you're going to have to get lucky. I mean, when you think about Isaiah Thomas, we can talk all day long. We can talk all day long and look at all the analytics about the great scores that they've had, but there is no way in hell the numbers bear it out that Isaiah Thomas was going to play the way he did when he got to Boston. You lucked into that. And a lot about luck is opportunity, putting yourself in position to make those type of moves. They're going to need something like that to really get that ideal playmaker, because they don't have a ton of money, and they don't have, frankly, right now, a situation that is conducive to bringing in someone with that type of elite level playmaking, pass first game right now. They're going to have to get lucky. And that's okay, because it's not like they haven't done it before, because they did it with Isaiah, and I think they can do it again, but it's not going to be easy. They're going to have to position themselves for that.
They already got lucky to me. I mean, this deal was awesome.
I think it was a good deal. I don't think this is a luck deal. I think they did okay.
I wasn't certain anyone in the NBA was going to be able to take Walker.
That's Brad's boy,
I'm disappointed that Bobby's not wearing the actual jersey. I'm
disappointed I'm disappointed Bobby doesn't have a spotlight on that 42 jersey behind him with sequin, diamonds on the 4 and the
2. We both made that joke verbatim before we got on here. That was hilarious.
So look, the one thing we talked about with this deal, and it came up in the press conference today, Brad Stevens did talk about the Kemba deal and why he made it. And among the things he discussed was making it now because of the flexibility to get yourself to trade. Basically, you traded in this league year, so you can trade next year's draft pick as well next year. So you need an asset. You need that asset.
Oh, was it the Stepien rule?
Yeah, you need the asset
around that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
You need that asset to be able to make a trade for anything of value. So if you're going to roll players up together, you got to have a draft pick coming up soon that you can kind of use it as a pot sweetener. So you get the feeling that there's more moves here. You're also, you might need to package another pick to get rid of Tristan and to get that player that you need wherever that is. So there's definitely something else coming there, but they got to go get a point guard. They can't live without one at this point, I don't think.
I'm becoming more and more intrigued if he's willing to come to Boston by the idea of Kyle Lowry, especially if you're going to package up all these assets right now. So when they talk of flexibility, I don't know if they're talking about getting that next star through a max salary slot, which I think is a bit delusional here. I don't think they're in a great position to attract a third free agent and do all the different things
Not yet.
To get there. I guess you want to have that
in a couple
open.
of years. Yeah.
But if you have the opportunity right now to go get a guy like Lowry and he's interested in coming here, I think you jump at that and don't wait for a Beal or whoever else will be in a free agency at that point to come. You set up this team for the most success right now, especially now that you have Horford in here, who I think can be a major contributor to winning. I would do something if Lowry wanted to come here, like Smart, Thompson, Rob, and whatever picks it would take to make that happen in a sign and trade. And I think he would really be the perfect third piece to this team right now in terms of connecting everything together, being that point guard. I don't know what Toronto's interest would be. I just know that the Raptors are going to do whatever Lowry ultimately wants to do here. And you have to hope, if you're the Celtics, that he would have some interest in coming here, because there is a path to getting that trade done.
I don't know if that's it though, Bobby. That sounds ridiculous.
Yeah,
like that. You got a little bit of the future. You got a little bit of the now in Marcus Smart and Robert Williams for a 37-year-old. Kyle Lowry. I like it. I like the concept of the idea. I just don't like the way you worded it.
2 minutes in the penalty box for that one.
Yeah, man, that was rough.
Like
Jeez.
All right, who's your point guard choice? DJ Augustine?
I'm going TJ McConnell.
Well, Bobby, once again, it can't be like one thing or the worst thing ever.
Right.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
Again, Bobby, I like Kyle Lowry.
I like him too.
I don't like the way you put that. Like, if you can get it for someone for something the cost much less, obviously, Tristan Thompson's contract would have to help it there, and him having ties to Toronto and that background help. I mean, something like that. But you're talking about Robert Williams, Marcus Smart. No. I don't think you give that up for Kyle Lowry for a couple of years. I don't think it's worth it.
I just think he's exactly what you need right now. Veteran, vocal, can get it done on the court still, even at this advanced stage. Yeah, I mean, he's won a championship as a central piece, a number 2.
You're going to give up Smart and Robert Williams?
So the only reason you have to give up all of that is because you have to do a sign and trade to get him here.
No more of this. More of this.
I'm sorry. All right. Let's hear some alternatives.
I'm just saying it's not that. It's just you're not trading Rob for a 30-something-year-old guy.
Well, now you have Moses Brown.
No, come on, Rob. First of all, I'm gonna do a Rob Williams show soon, because my Rob Williams, my developing opinion around Rob Williams, especially watching Clint Capella playing now, and the way he's been a comp there, and I'm looking at him, I'm like, Rob's going to be better than him next year, and Capella's a pretty good ball player right now, and I'm watching Rudy Gobert flame out there, and I'm like, you know what? Rob defends the perimeter pretty well. I'm not putting him in Gobert's class. I'm telling you,
John's watching all this, being like, "Oh, Rob time coming."
Rob can do that. Rob's not gonna.
Lowry's 35, by the way.
John's I know someone that could do it.
My bold prediction now is Rob Williams will legitimately be. We'll be talking about a big 3, and the third person will be Rob Williams by the end of next year.
It's a tough thing, though, John.
Will he be an all-star?
Healthy. That's the thing.
He'll be knocking on the freaking all-star door.
John, I hate to say it, but it wouldn't surprise me if you get that for about 3 months, and then it all falls down.
If Rob breaks down again with another injury out of nowhere,
you never get anything.
I'll give up.
And everyone here will say, the Celtics should have traded him. I'm not saying that they should right now, because I don't think they just can't give up on him quite yet. But I think they're going into the season crossing their fingers, saying this is it. Like, if he's not healthy this year, we have to start thinking about moving him, and we have a replacement. Throughout that the Al Horford trade.
Wait, so anyway, I'm gonna go on the
insurance policy, if you will, and Moses Brown.
But Dinwiddie is a guy who is interesting. As a potential, as a point guard, I'm seeing salary in the range of 20 would be high, but I'm seeing most people settle in the 14, 17 range, which isn't outrageous.
What's Ball getting?
I think Ball's going to get close in the 20 range, right?
Yeah,
I would say.
It only takes one. Someone's gonna pay him that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Is he gonna get? He might get the Jalen contract. That kind of that max. Restricted free agent deal.
Get like 4 years, $80 million or something. Like, I mean,
easily.
20 million a year.
Easily.
Yeah.
Dinwiddie turned down what, a $12 million player option. So he must be expecting a minimum that multi-year deal. I know he's coming off an injury, but
I think he's the most underrated free agent in this class.
So that's a guy. If you talk about somebody, that's a guy I could get down with. There, I'm not giving up assets anymore.
I do want a veteran in here.
You don't have enough assets. You gotta develop them. and if Rob Williams is involved in a trade, it's because he's been developed and he's a guy who this other teams covet, and you're giving away that young guy for the star, and maybe he turns into that. Maybe Nesmith and Romeo turn into something of value, but you give those guys up when you roll them up into something bigger. I'm not burning potential stars that are young that you can afford right now for a friggin' 35-year-old veteran point guard. I don't think that's the right play for this team because it doesn't make you a contender. Okay,
I think it does.
You're way better off seeing if you hit a home run with a guy who at times looks like he's a top 5 NBA player. Like when he's on the court, you're like, who is this friggin' freak of nature? I'm rolling the dice there. I'm not giving that one up. But Dinwiddie, I could get down with. Yeah.
A guy like Lowry, I'm very, very much interested in. The Celtics need players who know what it takes to win, who still have that fire, who can lead by example on the court, off the court, aren't afraid to,
7 assists a game last year.
Take a young guy by the side and say, hey, snap out of it, buddy. Like, let's zone in here and let's win this game. Control the flow of the offense, distribute the ball. Kyle Lowry checks off all those boxes. Absolutely. I am also hesitant to trade a guy like Rob for that, but Kyle Lowry, he still has a little bit left in the tank. I know that he does, but when you start to talk about a guy like Rob, that's when I get hesitant.
Listen, we saw Rob at his best. He helped the team a lot and he raised their ceiling, but not enough to where we would have been saying, oh, this guy unlocked championship potential with this team or Eastern Conference Finals potential. And Lowry would be so instrumental to everything you're doing in terms of a game plan on both ends of the floor. That, like, we see what Chris Paul did this year in Phoenix for a team that wasn't even in the playoff race last year.
Agreed completely.
He just connected everything so well that it unlocked a great scorer like Booker and Ayton inside and just made all the younger players really step up their game too there. Following that model to me would be such a great way to go.
But here's the difference, though. Chris Paul has done that everywhere he's been. Everywhere he has gone, that team has gotten appreciably better, and so he's got a track record of that. Lowry got to Toronto, and everything just came together. Because remember, he bounced around quite a bit before he got to Toronto. So I'm not sure whether he's a guy that has found the perfect situation for what he does and what he's about. Because when his career is over, there will be a statue in T-Dot with his mug on it. There's no question about that. He's been that important to that franchise. But I'm not sold that what he does well is a transferable skill to a team like Boston. Because remember, for him to be successful in Boston, there has to be buy-in from the guys around him. Because he's not that type of player at this point in his career where his game is going to make guys buy in by nature. It's not there yet. I think the concept of Kyle Lowry is a good one, but the actual execution and application of a guy with his strengths and skills, I'm not sold that would fly in Boston. And then we're working on the assumption that he'd even want to come here, which again, I think that's a bit of a stretch as well. So I think you're right on in looking at this position for trying to add a veteran with a certain kind of moxie and savvy about them. I think that's a great idea. I'm just not sold that Kyle is the guy that would want to come to Boston, and 2, would be a good fit if, in fact, he did want to come to Boston. Because, again, I don't know if the issues that, let's say, Marcus Smart had with guys kind of buying into who he was about, would Kyle have those same issues? I'm not sure that would be.
Well, then, you know what, Sherrod? There's a bigger problem here, because if a guy like Kyle Lowry can't fit in, and, there's a few other players that have already left, and Kemba Walker's traded.
And Blake Griffin didn't want to come.
And Blake Griffin was told not to come. Then you got to start looking around and say,
did we really think Blake wanted to come to Boston? I mean, let's just be real about that. Let's be real about that.
Well, not after he picked up the phone. Do you honestly think that
Blake at some point thought, maybe I should take my talents, my non-Duncan ass right now to Boston?
I don't think it was number one.
Or do I want to play with my boys in Brooklyn?
That's my way to
the chip. I'm probably going to be playing for a chip. And I'm going to get paid the same kind of money I'm getting, and I won't have to work nearly as hard. I don't have to carry anybody. The only thing I got to worry about is keeping my ankles intact when Jason Tatum is trying to come at me.
It doesn't mean he was coming, but it does mean if it's true and he asked, and so it's not whether or not he was coming. The story is if someone legit told him, "Nah, don't come here. It's a shit show." That's bad.
See, I I can't believe
You know,
it.
like, hey, is this restaurant any good? Doesn't mean you were going to eat there. If someone's like, no, friggin' don't ever eat there. You're like,
nah.
okay, cool.
So
Yeah,
cook's like, nah, you don't want
glad
this
that
food.
John did not make a relationship analogy right there because I totally thought that was coming.
No, I'm going to start calling them Zanalogies,
Right.
and we're going to do a segment
Some
here.
ex-girlfriend thing or something.
No.
Yeah.
No, what's
if someone
funny
tells
to
you that
me-
girl is not your type, then does that mean you're not going to date her? Why?
Right.
Yeah.
No, what's funny to me about this is that Blake wouldn't have
That's John written
changed.
all over it.
Blake wouldn't have had any impact on the situation, so it's not like they missed a huge opportunity.
It's the
Right.
principle. It's the principle behind it. If that
Yes.
actually happened, you know what? I mean, I would be so disappointed if that actually happened. I can't imagine a player not wanting to improve his team, by bringing on a guy like Blake. And I know Blake's not like an all-star this year and all that stuff, but there's no excuse for a player on the team to tell another player.
No, you're right
"Don't
about
come."
that.
But there's another school of thought that could be at play here. The player may have realized that Blake had little to nothing left in the tank and didn't want to make him feel bad and said, "You don't want to come here. There's nothing here for you, Blake. You don't need this. Go somewhere else."
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to come out to the bar with us. It's not going to be even fun tonight. Like, you should stay home.
Yeah.
You should stay home.
Hey, we're tired. We're probably gonna head home after one drink.
Fringe guy, just stay home, man.
I'll tell you, Blake.
I'll tell you about it tomorrow when we're back.
Yeah.
We're not even. I'm on my way out.
Yeah.
Blake was pretty good with the Nets, but even when he looked good, he did not look good. If you know what I mean.
This isn't the Celtics want to have Blake Griffin segment of the show. It's just whether or not somebody's trashing Boston. If the call. Look, are the calls coming from inside the house? That's what you need to know. Right. So this is where it comes down to here. I don't know where all of the reports are coming from. What is important is if Kemba was disgruntled and we didn't know, another reason potentially to get rid of him. If you thought that there was some issue there, I'm not getting that vibe. It seemed like the players liked him as well. Tristan is another person who you start to wonder. We did have that report earlier in the year about him going out and partying and this and that, which was kind of shot down, but not a lot of people are rushing to his defense either. He said it was bullshit. I don't know if he's the guy here. We'll see the next person to go here. But one way or the other, you're out on him as a player. But if you've got problems here and there are issues within the organization, outside of Jalen and Jason, if you have somebody in there who's not rowing in the same direction of everybody else, you got to get them out. It doesn't matter what the cost is because you just can't have it, especially if it's an older person or a person of influence because they can really poison the well. We've already seen it happen once before.
That's the thing, John. Look at this roster. Who really has a say in anything? Jalen, Jason, Marcus. Kemba did, but now he's gone. Like, who really has a say? You can throw Thompson in there, I guess, a guy on an expiring deal. He's been there for 1 year. And, are we really going to say that Tristan Thompson has much of a say in anything? I mean, the guy is out.
Grant.
The guy's out doing his own thing. Yeah, Grant, of course.
I think that's a big reason why Brad Stevens. That's another big reason why Brad Stevens pulled the trigger on this trade. I mean, Al Horford, for his influence and for who he was. I mean, from Jason Tatum,
worried.
The very first media day after he left, he called him one of his favorite teammates. I mean, you don't think he had any input on this?
But Josue, if you're concerned, Josue, with Smart being kind of in Brad's little circle and the guy that Brad trusts, and now Brad's brought another one of those guys in there, is that going to help locker room chemistry?
But no, this is different though. This is another one of those guys, John. This is Pops. This is Dad from back in the day. Dad who left 2 years ago. Like, that was his role with this team. He was
Dad
the dad
who left you. Now Dad wants to come back and hang out with his kids again.
Yeah, that's a good way to
put it. He got his pack of smokes and he came back. It never happens that way.
Dad got a lucrative offer. Dad had a lucrative offer.
For a minute. He's back. He didn't go far. Just went around the block real quick.
Dad threw the football and bolted the other direction.
He said, "Kids, I'm just gonna go down the street," and then he never came. But now he's
back.
Now he's back.
No, Josue, it's not even so much about the room because a lot of times the room and what's going on the court reflect each other. If stuff's going fine on the court, there's never going to be issues in the room, and if there are, they don't really matter. You need to establish a team that's going to work the right way and make everybody happy and get everybody the touches they need in the spots that they need. Ultimately, Thompson ramming himself in the middle, never passing to the perimeter, and not connecting much of anything, didn't do all that much to facilitate that kind of product on the court. Al standing in the high post, making all the right reads, getting guys great looks, cutting baseline, doing all those things he used to do as a facilitator, I think is just, going to engage people and just make this a much more pretty offense and an active defense.
Right.
Like, this was really, out of all the guys we talked about, he had the most potential to impact this team in a way that Kemba didn't.
What about Al's knees? Didn't Al have some knee issues his last year in Boston?
We're not talking about that right now, Jimmy. All right.
Just want to make sure that we don't have run into the same issue. That
can I say the thing that's going to get everyone to yell at me?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'm not saying this. I'm not starting it. I'm just simply we keep going around the world. Okay, well, what if Marcus is a problem? What if Kemba was a problem? What if Tristan was a problem? Okay, what if Kyrie was a problem? It was Gordon. What's the constant variable here in all of these things? Okay, and this is what worries me a little bit is
we've been saying this.
It's what if Jalen and Jason, again, everyone's like, tread lightly, John. I'm not saying Jalen and Jason are problems, but I'm starting to wonder what is going to make them happy at this point. Like, if everything is about build around those guys, find pieces around those guys, but none of it is working right now. At what point do you start to wonder, can we get anything that's going to work here?
Well,
is there a formula that works? Is there the right combo of players that works? How does it work here?
I think Al is a start.
Right.
Because this was really the first year where just the idea of building around them was even something that was feasible. And that really wasn't feasible until we got in the middle of the season where Jaylen Brown made that leap from being a pretty good player to an all-star. So we haven't even had a full season of them trying to build around those guys.
Yeah.
And I think adding Al, is a nice kind of brick in building that foundation. But they have to do a better job of getting guys who complement those guys. They need guys who can run the floor. They need guys who are more athletic.
What if people are struggling with them, like playing with them, with their styles, with their personalities? What if the issue people are having is with those guys, not complementary pieces basketball-wise? What if you've got an issue where you're having people that are having a tough time jiving with them, or one of them, for whatever reason? And I don't know that that's the case, but that's going to be a concern if we go through another rotation of another round of players and all of those don't work too. And it's like, I
honestly think this is.
But we knew this last group was bad.
This is like his binky, if you will. It's like, okay, this is what I know. This is how we were successful. Not just Al Horford himself and obviously his skill set, but just the philosophy. Let's see if we can get a little bit more of that. Let's get a voice back in here that used to galvanize these guys. And if that doesn't work, then we have a serious problem.
Then you have
can start. It's like what you said. What was it last week? You get the autopsy, if you will, right? Like, this is part of the autopsy, and I think this is Brad's obviously his first move, and he feels really safe about it because he knows what he's getting in Al Horford, and to give up a first round pick and to also get Moses Brown and all that stuff. Look, I just think it's from a culture standpoint. It's just like, okay, let's test this out, and then we'll see if we have further problems.
I guess. So here, one thing I did find interesting. Go ahead, Jimmy. Go ahead.
I was going to say, let's stop acting like Al hasn't already been there, done that with this team, with these two guys.
No, not quite like this, though.
Hold on. He's been on the team. He watched them collapse. He watched the whole thing collapse with Kyrie on the team, and I didn't hear a boo.
And he's like, I'm out of here.
And he was the first guy out the door, first. Second of all, where'd he go? He went to Philadelphia, to another team with two young stars that couldn't seem to quite get it together. And what happened in Philadelphia? He was moved on out of there. He obviously didn't have much of an effect. They were a first-round exit with him on the team. So let's stop saying that, Al Horford, and listen, I like Al Horford. I'm sure he's, still got enough in him to contribute. But let's stop acting like Al Horford's the savior of this team. What John's saying is something that we've hinted at, and what we've actually mentioned on multiple episodes of the show, is that star after star, player after player come and go on this team, and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are still here. Why are so many great players so willing to leave this team? Kemba Walker, if you believe the reports, wanted to leave too. I mean, at some point, is there a star player that wants to make it work with these two young guys, believes in these two young guys, or do these two young guys have to therefore believe in their teammates around them? But there is definitely a disconnect, and I go back to that word because watching this team this year, whoever's fault it is, whoever was preferential treatment and who wasn't, there was a huge disconnect. And when you want to give Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown all the credit when things go well, you have to give them the criticism when things don't go well. At some point, the more bigger role they have, the more criticism they're going to have to take, and the finger point is going to be pointed towards them in good and in bad.
But Jimmy, let's be real though about most of the guys that have left and why they left. Most of them left because they had either a better opportunity to play or they got more money. I mean, Al Horford, he made it pretty damn clear that if I opt out, you give me a new deal, this is what I want. And if you do that, I'm here. And if you don't, I'm bouncing. And they were like, go ahead, see what you can get. And he got the money.
Yes and no.
He got paid,
yes and no.
absolutely.
Hold on. That's a timeout. I got to call a timeout there. For Al, yes. But Al left partly because Kyrie left. And Kyrie left because at the beginning of the year, he's like, this is where I want to be. And then by the end of the year, he's like, this is not where I want to be. And he threw a ton of not so thinly veiled criticism at the younger players. Okay, so Kyrie's issue very clearly publicly was with those guys. Gordon Hayward, while he didn't call those guys
they're best buds now.
While Gordon Hayward didn't call those guys a problem, he left for more opportunity. He didn't want to be in the shadow of those guys. So you have two people who have directly alluded to issues that they've had, whether it was the kids don't get it and they're not willing to work yet. And that you got a lot of that from those guys. Even Marcus Morris was saying it. He got into it with Jaylen Brown. You got a couple of veterans who had that vibe in that year.
Marcus Smart seems to be having that same.
And Marcus Smart's gotten into it too. So you've got a lot of people who are like, I don't think these kids get it. And so
maybe it's obvious to them that
we keep rallying to the side of the kids. We keep rallying to them. But as Josue said earlier, right now you've done okay. You're going to get a coach that we think you can jive with better than Brad because that wasn't working, and there's nobody freaking left. It's you guys, and it's your show. You know.
So if it
doesn't work, and if there's more problems here, we are going to get to the point where
a serious problem now.
You might have a problem.
Yeah.
There's going to be anybody else left to blame.
That's because look what we did all year. All year we were like,
we goes to the front office and goes, "I'm done, guys. That's it." They don't want to listen. You know,
look at the excuse all year.
They need Al to a scouting role.
Yeah, I'm out for good.
What does that mean ultimately, though? Because they have time with these guys, and they're still so young and early in their progression.
You do and you don't.
Every young star goes through this, though. LeBron went through this.
Stars don't want to play with each other. Then
you do and you don't. Right.
The difference is they're not LeBron.
If it's toxic right now or there's tension or something's not working right now, it's not going to get better miraculously.
So what do you do?
What I'm saying is you don't know right now. They're on the clock, so to speak, at this point, because all year long we're like they didn't get enough help. Well, they had a ton of freaking help and all of those guys left before. So this is what you got.
They're not on the clock. I mean,
they were in such different roles when those other guys were around. I mean, that was the issue. The fact that they basically Tatum and Brown were in a very clear role that they needed to play, and they outgrew that role exponentially quicker than most thought they would, and that caused problems. I can't be mad at young guys who step their game up before anyone thinks they should, and the OGs, the old heads, are like, wait, we got a problem. No, OG, you have the problem. This young fella is ready to roll, and you're not ready.
But is he?
Sherrod, this is what I'm saying. We have constantly, and myself also, have come to the defense of these guys. We're like, get Kyrie the F out of here. Get this guy out of here. Build around these guys. All offseason, we're saying,
right.
I don't
do whatever they want.
Do
whatever they want. I'm like, if they want this coach, hire that coach. If they want this guy gone, hire that guy gone. I'm basically saying, and all these friggin' idiots in the chat, like, this is crazy. No, we're literally saying appease them and give them every single thing that they want right now because you have to build around them. But if we keep having problems and dysfunction and issues, you're going to run out of things. You're going to run out of places to point. Now you've basically said you're going to get your coach. You get to run the show entirely yourself. And Brad basically goes out today and says, we traded Kemba to have flexibility to build a roster around these two guys. So that's what I mean by on the clock. It is your team, your coach, your everything. Go.
Yep. And that's
what I'm saying.
Starts.
Yes.
No, I get what you're saying because if you look back on it, realistically, the championship window
no
is when you have those
anymore.
two guys on their rookie contract. That's when you know when you have the Kyrie Irvings and the Gordon Haywards and your two rising stars are still on their rookie contract. Like those 2 years were supposed to be it, especially 2019 when everyone was healthy. But obviously we know how that played out.
Yeah, that's just a sunk cost at this point, that failure of the old tenure here.
Now
you're trying to establish this new situation. Unfortunately,
but you need vets. You need vets. You can't build a championship contender around two young guys.
I absolutely agree.
Vets don't like it here.
You do.
That's
because
issue,
they don't
John.
play. They don't get to play. I mean, if you're Jeff Teague, and granted, Jeff Teague did not play well. I totally get that. But a few bad games, and this kid that you drafted near the end of the first round from Oregon is outperforming you, and you don't play. Yeah, that's on you.
Listen,
and that's my issue here. A lot of the young guys they outperformed, they outkicked their coverage basically.
But Sherrod,
they were supposed to be a certain level ability wise. And a lot of them have outperformed that. But the problem that the Celtics have, to Jimmy's point, you still need that wisdom of a veteran. And the Celtics, they just haven't been able to get talented enough veterans to complement their young guys. Right. So that's on them.
But, okay, Teague, fine. When I mean vets, I mean vets that still have, like, a legitimate
in the tank.
Ability to contribute. Yes, Teague was a flyer. I feel like me and John have mentioned this 100 times.
He doesn't matter at all.
He doesn't matter.
Right. They need a mid-level exception type veteran that can come in and set the tone and be a voice and still contribute on the court. That's what they need. That's what these championship teams have, a good mixture of both. They don't just have two young stars leading the way to the championship.
They need Jay Crowder,
they actually do need players like that.
They do. That's exactly who they needed.
Bring him back.
That's exactly
bring him back
who they
to
needed
half
this
the damn
year.
band. They might as well bring Jay back as well.
In terms of attitude, in terms of positional depth, he would have been perfect this year.
We joke about it, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
It is the
How
truth.
about Isaiah?
No.
Wash.
And
Isaiah's the type of veteran you want. I just don't know if the fit's there. The fit might not be there, but you need that leadership and that pride that he brings, though. You do. You do need that.
Thompson showed more than anything that you can have a guy saying the right things and bring in that cachet, but you have to be able to bring it on the court too and fit here. Like Teague, forget about it. Like he just wasn't good enough, and it didn't matter what he was doing in the room. If you bring in lower bench veterans just to replace Grant and those type of guys, Jabari Parker, it didn't matter because he wasn't doing enough. You need a guy like Kyle Lowry, who's actually going to be part of your big three here. Can be a voice in the room, but can also do it on the court. Because let's be real, they just didn't have enough on the court last year to win at the highest level. Should they have been better than they were? Absolutely. But they also did not have a core that was going to be able to compete with the top flight teams in this league. And they had so many issues when it came to that Kemba situation and the youth on the team that they ultimately weren't going to be able to go anywhere, even in a best case scenario. So you're going to have to completely reshape this roster right now with guys that can be a voice and contribute and get along with the others in the room there. Like the more I think about it, we're looking at a substantial overhaul of this team this offseason, and it has only just begun.
Yeah. I mean,
clear it out.
There's not much you can do. I mean,
you got
to get rid of Tristan. Yeah.
Tristan, can we just talk about Tristan Thompson? What is this that I've seen on I guess him and Chloe are done again. I had to bring that up in the show. I mean, if we don't bring that up in the show.
Yeah, I mean, we saw
because we don't care, Jimmy. That's why.
Listen, it's full circle coverage here on CLNS.
Jimmy,
on the court, off the court,
fighting in her
drama,
DM, bro.
Reality TV show. Tristan Thompson and Khloe Kardashian are reportedly done again.
Yeah,
so.
and Tristan
Jimmy's trying to slide in
her DMs.
Yeah, Jimmy's trying to slide in her DMs.
She's too tall for me.
Based off of that report,
women in the world are too tall for you. But
Tristan seems really broken up about it.
Don't ever let a girl tell you that, Jimmy.
Tristan Thompson's really broken up about it. He's seen with 3 women reportedly at some mansion in was it Florida or California? I think.
I don't care.
So listen, but okay. Well, didn't somebody mention Celtics didn't take COVID seriously? Did somebody say that was in the report?
Yeah, somehow tie that in with Tristan and the Kardashians. I'll take it.
I'm just saying, like,
I don't think
you are.
Seems to be out and about. That's all I'm gonna say.
I don't know how you would have the most.
I hate Jimmy.
Jimmy was ready for one more season of Tristan.
I'm not saying super spreader, but hey,
out and about.
But you just did. Why do people say I'm not saying, and they say exactly what they say?
No, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it.
You just did.
No, I said I wasn't saying it.
But you did. I love
So,
you.
anyways,
I'm not
another
saying, but
guy
I'm
they
just
might
saying.
have to think about moving
You know who we didn't,
if they
per
can.
usual, the guy we didn't mention here or emphasize enough.
Oh, don't say it.
Jaylen
Fournier?
Brown.
Woo.
Sure.
I mean, so
Okay.
I'm willing to move on from Fournier in certain scenarios. Obviously, in that Lowry one, you'd be letting Fournier go. Brown, whatever they do, it needs to accentuate him the most. Like, and now that Kemba's out the door, they really more than ever before have to make sure Brown's shooting just as many times as Tatum is per night and has the ball in his hands just as often as Tatum does here. Because ultimately, the biggest fault and the turning point of last year was when things got away from Brown and that early season success that he had on the way to 8-3. If anybody deserves to be frustrated and undersold and shown less favoritism so far compared to others at this point in his career, it's Brown, who last year showed that he's one of the most efficient players in the NBA period, capable of reaching all NBA level, and far too often just ended up in the corner or off the ball, trying to find his spots. He's got to be 1B to Tatum at this point, and whatever moves make that the easiest here, whether it's taking the ball out of Tatum's hand and in a point guard that can find both of them at an equal rate. That's what they ultimately have to do here, because I don't know what the point of going forward is going to be if they don't accentuate Brown more. And that was the biggest reason I was willing to move on from Brad too, because his offense didn't do a good enough job of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good night.
And on that note,
Thanks for coming out.
listen,
No,
Jaylen Brown is obviously a star, but that's when we're talking about, if players, if we're talking about Jaylen and Jason and players not seeming to fit in with them or this, that, and the other thing, I think at some point, if you have to decide between one of the two guys, I think we all agree that Tatum is number one guy and Brown's the number two guy.
If you decide between one of them, your run's over. So you got to figure out how to make them both.
You have to
work together. Like I'm reading this.
You're just gonna go down with the ship, like until they both their contracts expire.
Well, no,
that's your only choice at this point.
Down the road.
Well, Bobby says that's your only choice, and Josue says no, it's not.
I mean, heading into the season, I don't think this offseason you're thinking, do you have to?
Oh, not this offseason. No, of course not. I'm not trying to get rid of one of them. I'm not trying to get rid of either one of them. But I'm just saying, we're talking about players that fit and players that don't fit
been trying to trade
this roster
before the season started.
I agree. You have to do everything. Brad Stevens' number one job is to build a roster where all the players fit around Tatum and Brown. So far, it hasn't happened. So we'll see.
The Kemba move's a good start because ultimately he wasn't going to be able to fit into that dynamic. We had a sense that was the case very early last season.
Are they better? Are they better now?
Well, I mean,
I think so.
For real, do you think the team on the court is better today than it was before the trade? No.
I really think they are.
No.
Because of the defense, the unreliability in terms of
they would have been just as good putting him on the bench. So no, the answer is no.
Yeah, but you can't put him on the. It's like what we just watched with Ben Simmons. You can't have a $30 million.
You didn't get enough in return to justify. You got players at positions that weren't necessarily positions of need.
You got things that you needed: defense, passing, shooting in Horford. He is a much better fit on this roster than Kemba. And frankly, he might be a better player at this point.
He might be a better fit, but you have nothing to replace Kemba with. You can't replace the scoring, and you don't have a point guard right now. So the hole it leaves on this team is bigger than whatever you create by adding what you added. So they're worse today, in my opinion. They're worse. But you assume it's the first domino to fall.
Right,
what's up, Jimmy?
So you're going Rob, Horford, Tatum. Tatum's now small forward.
You're running double big.
Shooting guard.
Yeah.
Unless Fournier.
Are we doing this again? Double bigs all over again?
They're running double bigs.
Okay.
No, I think if Fournier's back, he probably starts.
And Al will come off the bench.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Al, Pritchard, Neesmith, Romeo, and
Al doesn't want that 5 spot. Once you hit a certain age, you don't want that 5 spot.
No, Jimmy,
Kevin Garnett will tell you that.
If they're telling you that you're going to play 20 or so minutes and you're probably going to play a lot at the 5, you're cool with that because that means your wear and tear isn't going to be what it was when they expected you to play 30, 35 minutes at the 5 spot. That's the problem if you're Al. You don't want to play. You don't want that kind of smoke. 20 minutes, I'm good.
No, but I don't think you don't want to play the 4
20
either.
minutes?
The new 4 are the Kevin Durant's and the Jason Tatums of the world. You know,
that's why you want to be at the 5 if you're Al.
If you want to be at the 5
now,
those guys don't want to be banging down low.
No, 5s don't bang anymore, Jimmy.
Yeah,
he can do it.
Mike, it's coming back.
They get caught back.
That's the name of my next album. 5s don't bang anymore. You know, that's it.
You're welcome.
Real ones
You're
do.
welcome.
Real ones do.
5s don't.
Al can do whatever he needs them to do.
Well, between Moses Brown, Moses and Al and Time Lord.
I want to be on that album. 5s don't bang
anymore. It's like my country album. Yeah.
What is the cover? What is that? What's the art like?
CLNS Records release.
The cover art.
5s don't bang anymore.
5s don't bang anymore.
Debut from CLNS Records.
John Silhouette.
You know what's good? We're gonna have a lot of breaking news shows this off season. I just have a feeling it's gonna be like one after another.
And a lot of merch. We're gonna start doing merch here. Okay, I think for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Starting with the 5s don't bang anymore T-shirt.
My first one is going to be Little Jimmy going to homeschool T-shirt. I'm going to make one of those.
Mine's going to be Bobby in an apology cam.
Yeah, big apology cam T-shirt.
Years from now,
we'll Josue and something about Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
yeah.
One
T-shirt.
Just fizzle.
Yeah. No, put the old school like bars.
Glitchy Josue, Boomer Rage Nick with his head exploding. You know. Yeah, that'll be good.
1G.
Again, it was a one-off Garden Report. We did it. We talked a lot about the report and some stuff. We're still kind of like we said, we keep using the term autopsy, figuring out some of the stuff that's happening with the team. Brad did a press conference today, did not offer a lot in terms of any insights here. It was really kind of like the, how I spent my summer vacation, 4th grade, report equivalent of a press conference. Like, Brad, is it cool being a G? There wasn't a lot of meat there. The Horford stuff, it was talked about a little. Kemba, salary flexibility. Any takeaways from Brad before we wrap it up? Because I didn't get a lot, from that today.
I mean, the only thing that I thought was fairly interesting was just how it's clear that Tatum and Brown are going to be involved in the process. And that was something that we did not have a true sense about. And when you look throughout the NBA, that's one of the easiest ways to get your star player to want to get the hell out of town. Start making decisions that they find out on Twitter. That's just not how it should go. You don't have to sign off on them, but give them a heads up that what the hell you're doing before they find out on Twitter. That's just that's never cool.
Yeah.
And Brad understands that.
I got the same vibe as well, and then everything he said about Al Horford and what he does and making players better and how he can make guys like Tatum and guys like Tatum and Jalen better. So obviously that's the direction. And again, like I said earlier, I clearly they had a say in this thing, or at least they were informed. So I think that's the direction you need to go in if you're Brad Stevens, and this is a great step in that direction.
There was one thing for me that I thought of. Well, he was asked about, did you ever think about waiting to bring in a new coach before you made a major move like this? And Brad was like, you could tell he was like, never dawned on me, actually. And also, again, there was the desire to get this done in this league year because of all the reasons we stated. But yeah. It is interesting because how many more moves and how many more things are you going to do without a coach in place, without their input, and then bring them in here and say, okay, coach these guys, So while Brad Stevens absolutely values everything Al Horford brings, a new guy might come in and be like, I don't want this washed up old dude, can we find a way to get rid of him? And you've already got an issue right out of the gate. This is not how I want to coach this team. I wonder. You start doing other moves. What do you want? You start building too much of a team.
I wonder how much is Brad thinking back to when he came to Boston and how Danny kept flipping players left and right. And Brad's thinking, well, shit, I learned how to coach in this league on the fly just like that. And if I'm going to bring someone in to be a coach, they're going to have to learn how to make the most out of whatever the hell hand they're dealt. Yeah. And in 2 or 3 years, when we're ready to potentially have the cap space to go out and get a great player to add to Tatum and Brown.
That's all.
They're going to have the experience of knowing how to work with whatever they're dealt with. They're going to be better off for it. Maybe that's his master plan.
That's why I like that part when he was talking about no matter what, that guy, whatever he goes through, well, I'll make sure we go grab a beer or a cup of coffee or whatever. Like
after they catch that first loss,
when things get that first loss, and obviously I think he also meant when things are down, when it rains it pours, in the city. He knows firsthand, I think. So yeah,
I do love Brad. You get the sense that the realization that it wasn't working for him as a personality in the room, he's now going to restart and put this effort in at GM. You hope it's long term, but again, seal of approval. Passes with flying colors that first move. I just love that trade. Got more out of it than I even expected.
Yo, Sherrod, you want to go half on that spotlight? Let's do it. Let's send that to Bobby here.
Oh my God.
Two things. Two takeaways from me.
Yeah, let's do it.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
One, Brad had a years long leash with Danny. So whoever he hires, are we to expect that he's going to sort of like pay it forward, and like this coach is going to be around for
pay
a
it
while?
Forward? This isn't charity.
I mean, I don't know. That's what I'm wondering.
No.
I mean, I guess we'll find out. But
no,
that's my first takeaway. I think he will. I think whoever he hires, he's going to stick with for a while.
We don't know how long. We don't know how long Brad will be here.
Well, that's the thing. If Brad goes, then all bets are off. Who knows at that point? The other thing was, one of the things Brad said today was, he told Danny that he wants to see Danny in the building often. He thinks Danny's going to stick around and
Danny's house,
be around. Danny lists his house today, $4.5 million for sale in Wellesley. So I don't know how much you're going to see of Danny Ainge in
I just
the
pictured
TV
like a
garden.
cloud of smoke. Like,
you think you're going to see Danny here in January?
Sherrod, I was telling these guys on text, if we get the collection plate going and we all chip in, maybe that could be our permanent Garden Report headquarters there. We just go to Danny's house. We'll just do it there.
It's like that.
Set up right outside.
Get Nick on the phone. Nick, make it happen.
Make it happen.
Make it happen.
Right outside his house.
It goes back to that analogy about when you leave your job and you're like, yeah, man, we should totally hang out. Like, we'll definitely keep in touch. And then you walk in the door, you're like, yeah, I'm never seeing that guy.
Never mind leaving the job, retiring.
He gone.
Who retires and hangs around the job to help out? That is not happening.
Oh no, a lot of people.
Especially
back
if
in
you're
the
not
day,
residing in a warm retirement community. I mean, please. He's gone.
Especially now, the new normal is like, yo, just FaceTime me, bro. You'll be all right.
We'll
figure this out.
Yeah.
Well, the TD Garden used to be littered with the legends of the 70s and 80s and all that stuff. So you wouldn't be surprised to see a guy like Danny Ainge walking around the halls. But now, those days are long gone. You don't see any of that. You won't see any of that, I don't think, anymore.
Yeah. Last thing I wanted to bring up on this, not on the Brad front, but we didn't get a chance to dance on the 76ers grave.
Good.
They lose their and so we're going to do that for a split second. And I hope there's a few Philly fans in here.
Yeah, shout out to Kyle Draper.
It's not like they don't got time. It's not like they got anything else better to do.
So
off-season now.
So two things. And then Simmons' story ended up dominating, but from just a Schadenfreude perspective, obviously it's great to have, the Nets and the Sixers lose in the second round if you're a Celtics fan. But two, also watching the almost complete, the Sixers went from a total friggin' disaster to the 1 seed with their 2 stars working it out, filling shooters around them, the right coach in there, and everything is fine. And now we got to contend with them, to right back to the same dumpster fire they were at the end of last year with, what do you do with Simmons? He's useless. He can't shoot. You got to get out. And it's worse.
And a year ago, split him.
And Doc was miserable in this series, miserable coaching too. And now everybody's freaking out. So go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, when it ended last season and into the offseason, what they did was they prolonged the inevitable, which was having to choose between Simmons and Embiid. And they went out and they got Doug Rivers, and it seemed like he may have unlocked them. And, they obviously had a great regular season. They were sort of clicking there. But then you go into the playoffs, Ben Simmons just refuses to shoot the ball. You can't score if you don't shoot. Shoot your shot. All the analogies in the world. There was just no excuse for this guy to still be scared of shooting the ball from outside the freaking cylinder and even inside the cylinder now. So they're in trouble because they have 2 big issues. 1, they probably have to trade Ben Simmons. 2, they probably have to re-sign Joel Embiid to the Supermax, which pays him like $50 million a year for a guy that has huge injury history.
Jimmy, I'm going to tell you right now, though. Pay that man. There's literally one player on that franchise who showed up when the games mattered most, and that's the guy with the damn tearing his damn ACL.
They have
that's
to.
where here too.
That's scary though.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you I am very 27 years old, going on 37 for Embiid in terms of his health. This is a guy who I do not believe. I don't think his prime years are not going to last much longer. He's 27 now. I don't see him sustaining this level of play for more than a couple of years. I mean, he came in with a cracked back and missed 2 years, right out of college. I mean, this guy is big,
but they have to do it.
And he takes a pounding. They have no choice, but I'm telling you, every year past 30, I don't know what he's going to be like. I really don't know. And Simmons has almost no value at this point. You're talking about a guy.
That's not true.
Simmons has.
It's low, Jimmy. It's pretty damn low.
It's pretty low right now.
He's just making too much, but he's still very, very good.
Well, that's why he has. Yeah, that's exactly why.
But that's the problem. It's the contract, and
he's a specialist. He's not a franchise cornerstone.
Guess what teams don't want to pay for it?
If Ben Simmons was a guy who made like $15 million a year, everyone would be like, we got to get a Ben Simmons type player on our team.
Right.
But he's a guy who, even before the year, ESPN, we talked about that top 100 list. He was 16th on their list. People have him as a tier 2 superstar. He's no dude. You look at these guys out there. He's several tiers below, like a Trae Young or a guy, not even close in terms of impact and value. You cannot it's going to be hard for them to reshape their roster on the fly by moving Simmons, because they're never going to get value back.
No one's going to believe that he's ever going to be anything more than a defensive specialist, because he's actually regressed as an offensive force. How the hell do you go from being someone who doesn't take threes to someone who doesn't even dunk the damn ball? There's nothing between you and the rim but air. There's literally nothing between you but air. And I thought it was really telling. When he was asked about why he didn't dunk in the last game, why he didn't dunk, he mentioned that he thought he might have gotten hit from the back by Gallinari. And then it hit me. He was afraid to go to the freaking free throw line. It's to the point now where he doesn't even look to shoot for fear that he might get fouled. And if he gets fouled, oh my God, I got to take the free throw, the one where no one is guarding me, the one where I stand in the same spot and everyone pauses for me to shoot that I can't make. I can't make that shot.
Practice a billion times, just stand there in the driveway.
I'm not buying the practice.
It's legitimately, it's refusal to do your job. It is your job. And so
He quit in the series.
But you remember Brett Brown 2 years ago? He was like, he's going to shoot it. And I told him he's got to shoot it. And he's got to go out there. And then the next game, he went out and didn't shoot it. He's basically they're basically saying, I do not care if you miss. I need you to attempt some outside shots.
Yeah, you saw the process that they were trying to line up for him.
They're like, take him and miss. You got to start taking him.
I can't believe Doc couldn't get him
to shoot.
Nope,
he won't even take him. He refuses to. We don't care if you make them. We want you to fail. Do it. And he won't. He won't do it. It's the most apt nickname for him is coward. The Celtics pinned on him. He's a coward.
No, this was the next level, because this wasn't about him shooting threes or going outside his comfort zone and this and that. It's exactly what Sherrod said. He regressed to a point of just complete uselessness on that end because he didn't want to assert himself, and he essentially quit on this team because he's been relegated out of his point guard role, essentially relegated out of importance on this offense. They're asking him to make secondary passes, cut to the basket, and play good defense. And as a guy who probably saw himself as a star, frustrating. So in 5 out of the 7 fourth quarters, he decides, I'm not going to take a shot here. And that's just quitting on the team. And so
Get off the floor if you're going to kill. You have no value to me when you can't take open shots at a time when your coach is damn near on his knees begging you to take open shots. We're not talking about taking threes. I've let that ship sail. I don't care whether he never takes another three. But if
an elbow jumper,
the rim,
I do.
Take a mid-range jumper. Drive to the basket. Do something that shows me you actually care about my team.
Contrast. The contrast against Giannis, taking those elbow jumpers in Game 7 there, hitting a couple big threes, going to the line 14 times in that environment. I was
Made
there.
7 in a row. Bam.
I was there. I never heard a chant like that. I mean, credit to that crowd. That chant counting up to the 10 there on the free throws, and then he airballs a couple times early in that game. You were like, oh, no, is Giannis going to go through this too? Yeah, but then he goes and hits.
But Giannis
hits 8 free throws and gets it done.
The difference between them is Giannis's
depressing when I
drive.
noticed that.
Giannis is like, okay, I'm going to find a way to impact this game. Simmons is like, I'm going to shrink to the background. So Giannis, even through his struggles, he's battling his hands a little bit. He was struggling with his free throws. He wasn't sure whether or not to take jumpers and stuff. He's like, I'm going to will my way to helping my team win because they need me. Simmons is content to disappear on the court.
And his teammates are getting the sense that, you know what? If you're going to disappear, we're going to ignore you. Yeah. We're going to pretend that you're not out here.
They're playing 4-on-5.
Right. Yeah. It's 4-on-5.
And to have the other star player call him out publicly.
Yeah,
I don't remember seeing anything like that.
That does not happen often.
No, that was shocking.
This is the last big game he's ever going to play in. He's not going to Portland in this spot and these contending spots, and even people keep kicking around the Celtics.
Why would a losing team take him?
As a project.
He's a draw.
As a project.
You don't take $40 million projects
because they're losing teams.
Losing teams do. Losing teams do.
Yeah, losing teams do that all the time. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's why they're a losing team.
Yeah.
But let's list the guys the Sixers can get: John Wall, Porzingis, Gary
Welcome
Harris.
to our world.
Yeah. I said that misery loves company.
Watch, it's going to be Simmons for Kemba.
Oh God, can you imagine? I asked Bobby that. I was like, hey,
I can't imagine.
Do you think the Celtics could have had a chance?
No.
Well, that's what I said to Bobby. I was like, if the Celtics had a Kemba a little bit longer, do you think they could have flipped Kemba and like whatever to get Simmons?
Wait a second. Would they do that? Would they do Simmons and Kemba and give and take firsts away from OKC? That's not crazy.
Maybe
it's not crazy, but man,
I just don't know. Does anyone have Kemba's medicals? Does anyone know what's going on?
Give me 1 second, Bobby.
Yeah,
it's like teams keep taking them and saying it's going to be all right, and then it's not.
Nope. Don't trade for him. Looking at him now.
Yeah.
Don't
trade for him. God. Oh my God.
Oh, is that a knee? Is that sausage? Oh my God, what is that?
I love Kemba.
I know.
I wish he was healthy.
Yeah,
I do too.
It's tough.
Too bad.
Maybe he will be. Who knows?
I don't know what that trade's going to be. I mean, the CJ Simmons one is okay just because Portland needs defense that badly. But
if CJ played, at Lehigh, so I mean, it'll be somewhat of a homecoming of sorts for him.
Man, they're rough on him in Portland, huh?
They are. I would love for CJ in Boston. Would love it.
He's such a good dude. They hang a lot of their failures on him. They get so.
Well, what's he, 5'10"?
He's a real polarizing player.
I think he's taller. I think he's closer to. No, I think CJ might actually be.
CJ McCollum.
He's definitely 6 feet. He's like 6.
Yeah, he's like 6'1" or 6'2".
He's
phenomenal.
What do you mean 5'10"?
Yeah,
he's a smaller guy.
He's tall enough to step out of bounds in the final seconds of the game.
I love him.
Jimmy. Had to go there, Jimmy.
He's listed as 6'3". I thought he was 6'4".
Right?
He grew a lot. When he was at Lehigh, he was very short.
That's what Jimmy thinks of when he thinks of when someone mentions CJ McCollum.
People don't forget.
He's a killer. He's a killer on offense. It's just Portland needs defense that badly that maybe they're willing to talk themselves
Everyone likes that Simmons CJ thing right out of the gate. That's the first one. But anyway, we did need to shit on them a little bit. Watching the Nets and the Sixers go out was brilliant.
I love watching Philly fans cry and be pissed and all that
outside of the Schadenfreude thing, what I will say is, having watched all of these teams play, Milwaukee doesn't look that daunting or that scary or like a team
not even close
that you can't overcome. The Sixers now don't look like a team that's going to be that difficult for the Celtics to overcome. And really, you've only got the massive Nets hurdle, which is to say, if those three guys are healthy, turn out the lights.
Well, you were right about that health thing. I mean, it just happened like clockwork, like boom, boom, boom. There goes their big three. They're all
and that's it. So again, you're banking on a couple of guys who are, 30 plus or whatever, which those guys tend to get hurt more. Their primes also, their prime windows start to close, which means getting them to play at the peak levels you've seen them is less likely. Doesn't mean they're not going to be great. I mean, it's hard to argue that Durant didn't have as good a year as he's had, as we see.
Amazing in the playoffs.
And amazing in the playoffs, but he missed some time too, and he's going to be 1 year older. Kyrie, the youngest of the bunch, has had 1 year of over 70 games in his last 6. Kyrie breaks down.
And how much longer is his career?
Left and freaking right, okay? So he can never stay healthy. So, healthy, nothing you could do about that team. But you think you can't overtake Milwaukee or Philly after watching them go through what they went through here, even though Milwaukee's still playing? That doesn't look like a team that I'm super scared of going forward. So in a basketball sense, you feel good because your rivals lost and you friggin' love watching the Nets and the Sixers go down. But in a basketball sense, I feel a little bit better about the mountain. Doesn't seem as high to climb.
It's not
some of the holes that you've got to fill. When you look at the Knicks, you look at the Hawks, they're kind of in the same boat as the Celtics, where even though they obviously went a little bit further in the playoffs, they still have some noticeable holes to fill going next year.
The Hawks' trajectory is a little scary because they'll attract players too, and they have pieces to offer for other stars if they want to build the core up, or they can be patient with Hunter, Herter, and these other guys, and you're finally starting to see like the model of Golden State that they were following a little bit there with. They
can't screw up John Collins though. They got to make that happen because if he walks,
I think they will. They will.
Look, this was the thing. The whole point with Collins was they weren't sure whether they wanted to pay him that max extension. I don't think they're going to have a difficult time doing that now. It was just a matter of if they wanted to commit that money to him.
Completely different narrative. Right.
Yeah. Now I think they're going to want to. Before it was better. It was the choice. It was a choice before.
They didn't know who they were. They didn't know if they were good enough before. But I mean, look at this Hawks team. I mean, they've jumped up to
so much fun.
One of the most fun.
I love Kevin Herter.
Thank God they won.
Collins.
Trae
Young might be like my favorite player right now.
Another series.
I couldn't watch the Sixers play anymore. Oh,
Trae Young is just like awesome. Like his attitude, like his tenacity, like he loves to be the villain. He'll go into an away arena and taunt the crowd. Like that's what I love. I love that.
I love that Booker and Young are still playing right now.
Booker is just cut from the same cloth. Like they're very just like they want to punch you in the face.
Yeah,
Young's passing.
I've been waiting for this for a long time.
Young's passing is just so much fun to watch.
He's so fast. He's just a bullet getting wherever he wants to go.
He's emotional. He wants the shot. Like, you kidding me? You talk about Simmons. I mean, he's a complete opposite. I mean, he'll take a shot from half court if you give it to him. I mean,
not only that, those red uniforms they wear are beautiful. I love those.
Oh, nice one. That's an in-depth analysis on the uniforms.
They were nice.
I'm sorry, Bobby. I didn't see that coming. I'm sorry.
Bobby.
Oh, they're so good.
Well done, Bobby. The unis.
You guys should say beautiful. I should use it more often. I just don't use it.
Luka is still better than Trae Young. We can all agree, but I'll tell you what. There's something about Trae Young that I wouldn't just call that trade like one way for like who knows. I mean, Trae Young is making a name for himself these playoffs, and Luka's on an organization that's in a tailspin right now.
And dysfunctional, and Luka hates everybody. Apparently, he had issues with Carlisle. He had issues with the front office. So you don't want to see
that flipped because the Hawks. I mean, the Hawks were dead a year ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Just no trajectory to them whatsoever. No defense. It looked like the potential was stagnant a bit there. And now that young core that they have, young, but also Sherrod mentioned Herter we saw what he is last night. Just a guy that can go off. Can he be your Klay Thompson? Can DeAndre Hunter be your Draymond Green eventually? There's something brewing there. And then
it's good though. You like to see it. It's fun to watch.
And they got the right vets surrounding them. Gallinari, Capella. Guys who have enough juice to make an impact, but they're not good enough to be your franchise type guys, and they know their roles. Yeah. They know their roles.
That's what you need. You need those guys. You need those guys over the first or second year players who are trying to earn playing time and all this crap.
What's crazy too, in this East Finals, I haven't heard anyone mention this. Bogdan that Knicks deal to Milwaukee, the league essentially just stealing him away from them because they want to put the clamp down on tampering, and he ends up in Atlanta. He's a guy that could swing this series with Milwaukee.
And he's got that same kind of swagger that Trey does as far as like, you know, when the game gets a little bit squirrely and he hits a shot, he's looking around for somebody to silence.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, he needs to have a good playoff because his regular season was kind of he was injured for a lot of it. Yeah.
These playoffs have been so good.
Yeah. But they have been. They have been. Despite what.
And we've had the playoffs with no LeBron.
I know.
No LeBron. No LeBron.
No Curry.
Oh, man. That's true.
It's true. No LeBron. No Curry.
Round exit.
LeBron's bitching about the stars going out, and this is what you get.
There's a lot of good players.
There's a lot of good players. The NBA is filled with stars, and you're seeing a lot of them right now. And it's fun.
We needed this. I know we needed this type of postseason.
Some people are talking like the Kings made the East Finals or the West Finals or something. I mean, these are 4 real deal teams here. You're talking the 2 seed, the 4 seed Hawks, the 3 seed Bucks, who were right there with the Nets and Sixers all year, and then the Clippers, who people have been waiting to finally break through. These are real deal contenders. This isn't.
I think NBA fans are extremely happy with this. Like they're going to.
Who doesn't want a Phoenix Atlanta final? By the way,
NBA fans are cool with it, but I think your casual sports fan might tune out. I think your casual sports fan, but basketball fans are going to watch it. I'm just telling you.
Trey Young is going to bring the casual sports fan into the series.
I don't know.
Totally.
Fun is fun. You know, you know. We'll see.
Fun is
You're
fun.
Right.
But we're basketball fans, so
you're right.
It's fun for us.
That's what I mean. Diehards are going to watch. Obviously, they're going to enjoy it, but casuals. But
the East is open. The East is going to be open next year. I mean, we didn't even talk about like the Hornets. They're going to be better. I mean, Sherrod mentioned the Knicks. I mean, Heat. We didn't mention them. My Pacers. Who knows what's going to happen with them in the offseason?
Oh God!
Did you just own the Pacers?
They've been my preseason team since before this season. Didn't quite work out
my
for us
Raptors?
This year,
Are they coming
Bobby
back?
owns the Pacers. I mean, Bobby owns the Raptors. Jimmy owns the Pacers. You know, it's just we adopt a team at the beginning of the year. Everyone adopts a team.
Yeah. And let's say it wasn't the best adoption. I could have picked a better.
Sherrod, how you feeling about those Pistons? You gonna start buying back?
Yeah, that's Sherrod's.
Mine were the Heat.
Hell no. Not even close. If they get the number 1 pick, then we got a conversation. Okay. Now we got a conversation. But short of that, no.
Yep.
We're gonna put Bob. Speaking of number 1 pick, we're gonna put Bobby on extreme scouting duty for the Celtics' 45th pick because he is very, very interested in this pick, according to his text to us earlier today.
Yeah.
He said the Celtics absolutely need to nail this pick.
Well, when I saw the all-rookie team, Jayshawn Tate making that, a guy who wasn't even close to getting drafted.
Yeah.
And then Kendrick Nunn the year before that, a huge part of that Heat Finals team. It just keeps saying to me that year after year, we're starting to see guys in the second round and even undrafted guys really impact teams just because there's that much talent in each class. So you don't really even need a first-round pick to add to your depth. Again, the Celtics have the hardest part done. They got the core stars. You got to find the right contributing pieces here. So that second-round pick is more than enough to add a guy to the rotation who can help.
I am not putting much stock in the 45th
His name is Yam
pick.
Madar.
I got to be honest. I mean,
I can't do it.
I that's all I'm going to say on that one, Bobby. I love you, Bobby. I do. I really do.
Yo,
but damn, 45th pick.
If I came like that, if I came correct like that, you would have. All right, I see you.
Exactly.
You would have dragged me, man.
Bobby's getting preferential
that
treatment.
take, you would have dragged me.
Yeah, that's right. Bobby's getting and I'm not sure. Bobby's my guy. Bobby's my guy.
We don't want to bash Bobby. All the comments just yell at us. So.
Here's who they have going to the Celtics 45th. Someone by the name of Nahshon Highland out of VCU.
Oh, okay.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
When did this say this?
I remember him. VCU.
All right, I'll let you guys know soon.
Okay, so
thanks,
Bobby's going to start on his research. We're not doing Spotify Green Room tonight. We'll do it another night this week. We're kind of waiting to see if we get some news. I'm kind of hoping to see if we get a coaching hire. Portland's down to final 2 candidates. I think once that domino falls, Celtics will probably if you get Chauncey goes there, I think the Celtics will move fast. We might come in and we'll talk about
Why
that.
do they have to wait?
Yeah.
That's the stupid thing. Be first.
It's probably
Make your offer.
Because honestly, at this point, I think it's very clear
Shoot
that
your
Chauncey's their number one pick, and they're waiting to see if he goes to Portland. And then
That's
if not,
be it.
that
and
has
the
to be it.
Clippers and the Clippers are still.
I just don't know. Okay,
and the Clippers are still playing, so you're waiting.
Why is Chauncey Billups, unless he lives out there, why is he choosing the Trailblazers over the Celtics? If
That's curious to me.
They want that point guard life. He talked about Jason Kidd right after they were eliminated, and they're like, how about we compromise with someone like this, which would be obviously a great choice, a great candidate to come in. So I see why Portland is.
But that's the only thing that makes sense. Chauncey's number one, and then that's why they won't do it. That's why
I'm going to blame Wick if Chauncey ends up somewhere else.
That is frustrating if you're Boston that you're not top. You don't have the top say there, seemingly.
Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah. So, all right, so we're going to wrap it tonight. Thanks again, guys, for hanging out with us. Follow everybody here on Twitter, in addition to Celtics CLNS. That's how we're going to notify you when we are going live. We'll put it out there, announce it. We'll tweet it to all of you guys. We'll let you know if we're going to do another one of these shows this week, and followed by a green room. As far as promotional stuff, Sherrod Blakely has our favorite Horford on the podcast tomorrow. Anna Horford. Here to talk about the return of Al. So that's the A-List podcast. We'll get that out later on tomorrow. Of course, you always want to listen to Causeway Street podcast with Josue Pavon, Dome Theory with Bobby Manning, also the Cedric Maxwell podcast.
Oh, we got a good Dome Theory coming this week. I can't say it yet, but
you do?
We've all been doing our thing,
Bobby, you can't tease it even a little, dude?
No, I haven't confirmed it yet.
Don't do it, Bobby. Yeah. Don't do it.
You can't promise the unconfirmed.
It's Cornet. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know if we're going to see Cornet after Moses Brown trade.
Off-season talk with Cornet, no.
But a lot more good stuff, a lot of basketball talk as we get through these last couple of rounds of the playoffs, and then things are going to get really interesting as we get into the offseason as well. So thanks for hanging in what's kind of a slow period for the Celtics, but it's never slow. There's always something to talk about. You had the big trade.
It's never slow here.
Have a little bit of dysfunction. We're going to have a coach coming soon, and then we're going to be off and running with the off season. So thanks guys for hanging. We really do appreciate it. We had a pretty good crowd tonight out of nowhere on a Monday. So thank you.
Great crowd.
Hey, we know dysfunction. When there's dysfunction, we can talk about dysfunction.
Yes.
Says Mr. Homeschool.
This is Dysfunction Junction right here. We're going to talk about it. Yeah.
Fives don't bang like they used to, Jimmy.
They don't.
Fives don't bang no more.
Good night, all.